Okay. So would y'all prefer to like start at the points like one, two, three, or should we
Well,
go
since we
over?
already discussed the group name waves, and we all had different symbolisms that it brought us to, and we apparently weren't recording. So, but we had the conversation, so we did benefit from it. And so yeah, let's just like start talking about some of these things here. I love these brainstorming sessions.
Okay. Um, so we we were talking kind of like of themes. You said like momentum, water, in like in the waves. That's
Yeah, it's like we're in
like
the
where
wave.
we're at.
Yeah, as far as our like the level in our school time right now, we're in the waves. We're now working on the thesis that I'm realizing I totally misinterpreted. I want to redo. How do you feel about yours?
The thesis. Um, I don't know. I didn't really know what a thesis like would kind of look like until we started it.
Yeah, I would agree that like the class sessions is what helped me to kind of hone in on what we are supposed to do for the thesis. Um, what I like doing was reading through the book and kind of applying some of those concepts into it. And I think the main thing for me to even get jump started with the whole process was recognizing features and benefits. And although we had learned that in a previous class, the way that I visualize it now, because of reading the book, is much more in depth. Like the how the features have to be in line with the benefits, and it all has to kind of culminate in the same focus. We've had that whole theme throughout each class that we've taken, but not necessarily to the level of the application of the thesis. It's very
Yeah.
different at this point.
Yeah.
So I think, I see that question that they ask us. They say, what would, based on the reading that you were just talking about, it kind of ties into what oh, you just moved it.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was somewhere up.
It was B. How the visual, wait a minute, maybe not. Okay, so I had where we were supposed to like think about what kind of psychographic would want to join a group called the Waves. That was the question right there. I see it. It's right there at 3B.
Okay, this one right here.
Yeah. And so I just wonder with based on the reading, since you had just talked about that with the psychographics, I'm really trying to get a good grasp on the psychographic stuff. It's a lot more complicated than I ever thought it was.
Yeah, for sure.
What? Sorry.
I was reading um like the chapter we were supposed to read this week,
Yeah.
and like all of the things you have to put in, like you kind of have to imagine a personality or like build a personality for your brand. I was like,
Mm.
oh, wow, that's it's like quite a task. It's like a writing task.
Well, I think it's interesting. What if we looked at like Xavier, for example? If we developed a character around Xavier, because I think that, he brought up a good point when he said the wave reminds him of his church. And so you think about that, where the people that, may be drawn to a name like ours are people that have more of a journey in them, where they feel more like they're being guided in life. And, like a wave will guide you. It's going to take you where you need to be, not always where you want to be. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like it's almost like a willingness to be malleable. It's a willingness to be led in a certain way.
It's a trust. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, but knowing that you got like it's you know, a good waters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, and I'm reading this again to see like how I can build off of that.
See, I enjoy thinking about psychographics because of
Yeah.
like I'm doing a little bit of writing myself. So like I do a lot of short stories and things. And
Mm-hmm.
writing short stories, I try to make characters align with certain personalities and things. And
Yeah.
once you start thinking about like people's personality types and what they might be drawn to, I feel like it's way easier to be able to understand why they go for certain things, why they chase after certain things. You can actually see their motivations the more you get to know about somebody, the more you get to know about a certain group of people, you know?
Yeah. And then you think about that. It's like there must be symbolism that they're chasing after, not even realizing. It's things that you're choosing to be led by,
Yeah.
you know, and that's kind of a beautiful thing when you think about it.
That's something I appreciated learning about last class was selective attention. I did a lot of research on selective attention because I'm very interested in psychology as a field of study in general. So um being able to learn about that more a little bit, it's helped me, get to the point now where, we can actually look at each of these benefits and distinguish how we can deliver on those benefits, how we can actually get those benefits to the right people. So,
Yes. And that kind of comes to the what we are and what we aren't talk.
mhm.
You know what I mean? That I've been really fascinated with that because it kind of opens you up to that where, you know, you think about both sides of things and how would you communicate that to someone. And it's so wonderful to think about the what I well, I know what I wouldn't be, but I'm trying to find who I am. And so by determining what you would be, you can do the reverse and vice versa. And so I can see that. The lessons have all been kind of it's interesting. I'm sorry, ringtone. um, it's been like everything is building off of everything else. And I've been slowly working on building my business at the same time. And everything I have started implementing, everything. I'm doing it at the exact same time. So it's almost like I'm doing double thesis, right? But I have found that like I won over my last client just doing some of the stuff that we were taught. You know, the typography. I did a full style guide for them, and then I redesigned their logo. And I mean, I went to dramatically different, but I followed the steps of what we're learning. And by doing that, you start to find your own implementation process.
That's awesome. I thought about doing that too, like while we're doing the thesis, because he said we can do like present kind of like two projects, I guess, at the same time. Um, but then I was like, oh, maybe it would be better to like learn how this process is first and then try it. But that's really cool that you're doing both like at the same time.
It's been very complicated, but it helps me to learn.
Yeah.
I'd say I'm also trying to do the two at a time, but I wait for the critique of what we do in class. So like I did the hockey team one, the expansion hockey team,
Yeah.
and I chose novelty as the benefit. And when I was watching the session back, it kind of seemed like no one was convinced at first that novelty was the actual benefit. But once you start listing out the features and getting more specific, you can start to convince people. So then after I get the understanding from, the lesson and the critiques, I
Yeah.
apply it to my own thing. So like personally right now, I have a social media brand that I'm trying to build up for
Oh,
myself. So just like some of my poetry and little prints of typography, things like that. But
nice.
Like so much of this class has been geared towards how to make yourself marketable, not just another business or doing it for other people, how to make yourself marketable and how to get your messages out. So I've been appreciating that throughout this course as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to we have to learn how to get our message out if we're going to be capable of getting theirs out.
Mhm.
And that's been a tough thing to learn when you think.
Yeah, I would agree. Another thing too, I realize is like how much of like our world around us is kind of like branding. Like
Oh, yeah.
we're all, it's like a lot of messaging that's coming towards us from all angles.
And everything we do.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I like to think this class makes us more prepared to deal with those sort of things as well. It's like a lot of things can be like marketing tricks almost, and they're
Yeah.
not necessarily giving you a good product or giving you a good message, but they're putting it around the right things to make you believe that it is. So now that we know some of these things from
We see it.
yeah, from behind the curtains, you know what I mean?
The
It's
transparency veil.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. That's very true. And so now we start to see it. And I think it's helping to build the editorial eye, and that's something that I'm desperately trying to learn is how to thin back.
Yeah.
Because I will put out so much that I got to learn to bring it back in. What's been the hardest thing for you to learn through this stuff?
I think like I kind of have like the opposite problem where I have trouble like putting out the ideas. Like it's all in my head, but like getting it out into the world is more difficult to me, I think. But um, definitely learning like communication skills and organization.
Those
I would say for me, sorry.
No, you go ahead. What was that?
I would say for me, I'm a writer at heart. So my
Yeah.
main issue most of the time is sitting down in Illustrator or Photoshop and doing the assignments sometimes, because I personally would love to do just the research paper sometimes, which doesn't
Right.
make sense to most students, but I enjoy that writing and research aspect of it a lot.
That's cool. That's like we all have like our own skills, um, or like which pieces we're best at. Like I really like the visual, like making designs, but the
Um,
writing is hard for me. And then like Xavier, you like the writing, but the the visual may be more difficult.
I think for me that's been helpful of the design project. I kind of miss not having the design projects right now, like we have, just because I was learning at such a rapid pace. But I think it's also nice to be able to slow down a little bit and focus on this thesis and be able to really grasp all these details because it's like there's so much to it that it's too easy to forget a component.
I like it so far. Like it's it's cool like brainstorming all of these things and we're kind of like inventing um like our own thing.
Yeah, yeah. And it'll help you to be able to come out like more as far as I think one of the things is the more we know, the more confident we become, the better we can speak. And so that's what it comes down to. And with our design projects, we're learning something and it may be like trust me, some of my stuff has been just a hot mess because I was trying to learn the software at the same time. But then when I go and implement it separately, it's coming together and I can get to be creative that way. And so I think that that's like really it's would be good to be able to continually build more portfolio pieces.
Mm. Yeah, that's really good too. Like I like how we're gonna have all this stuff to be able to show um as part of a portfolio.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's because you have to be able to communicate what you can do because nobody's going to know what you do until you show
Right.
them.
I I think another problem that I had was sort of being a perfectionist, just a little bit, to the point where like I can see the mistakes in some of my designs sometimes,
Yeah.
and it's hard to sell something that you're not fully convinced of yourself, you know?
Right.
So like almost like not saying I doubt my abilities, but sometimes there is that doubt or anxiety creeping in when you don't know if what you did matches up to the level that it's supposed to be at, you know? Like even in this course, the amount of work that I see that I'm like, wow, like people are really putting in time and effort and you can tell that they're really good at these things. It's sometimes it gets discouraging and sometimes it's really encouraging to see like I could also achieve those things if I wanted to, you know, if I put my mind to it. And I just appreciate being in this course and seeing some of the work that people have done, but also realizing that I can also be better and pushing myself to be better.
Anything that allows you to push yourself can be a positive thing. But you're on your own journey and you're learning things, and there's things you know that we don't know. It's the same way for everybody in this class. Everybody's got something. And so some people can show their abilities visually, but you may not be seeing another area that they're struggling in. So it's important that you just do your best, I guess.
Yeah.
I think
Sounding
it all takes like practice too.
it does.
The more you
Practice,
do it, it'll become easier.
absolutely. So I don't even have my clock, so I can't even keep track of our time. Having the phone like this, it doesn't let me see my clock. And the phone on or the timer on the screen is says start down there at the bottom, but it hasn't been started. You know, we're not recording.
Hmm?
We're not recording. Xavier, were you
We
doing recording?
we are recording. It's just the timer didn't start over there.
Oh
We
yeah,
are
Oh, thank
I,
my
goodness.
bad.
yeah, I
I
see the
forgot.
red dot. It'll show up afterwards. But I do have the backup going as well.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
That's something that I've had to, in graphic design, one of the biggest things I have learned over the last 9 years is backing things up. I cannot say it enough. I lost an entire book of content to a computer that failed. So
Yeah.
now the timer's going.
Yeah, I think I've been talking for like
Oh
probably
no,
23 minutes, I think.
you think
Yeah,
so?
I think it's 23.
Okay, good, good. Then we're on track then. Um, but so I think that that's kind of these groups have kind of helped us to, go into that real world element of you're like, oh gosh, did you push record? I thought you were, you know what I mean? And it's like, so we had Xavier. And so I guess, all the steps are important, if, is what I'm seeing.
Yeah. You know, that made me think kind of sort of like it sometimes it doesn't even matter what the result is of things. It's like if you do it correctly, you can fix any error in the end, you know? You can kind of go back and correct your mistakes. So like some of these projects, you know, you have so many commands and things that you got to go through, and it's like if you do it correctly and have your correct conventions and everything like that, you can go back and correct yourself eventually.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
you just gotta do stuff the right way, you know?
Yeah. And then, yeah. And you think about how much better it probably is because you've had to do it so many times.
Yeah, yeah.
Like those darn papers, they've gotten to be more and more. I'm a little more efficient, but I'm also being like a little more detailed. And so it's kind of like counterbalancing.
Yeah, there was a time where I would skim articles and I would get what I needed to. But then when the weeks where I would read through the entire article, I would feel like I knew way more. You know what I mean? Aside from just finishing the project, I felt like in life I would know more, interacting with people, like there's systems of thoughts within like branding that just apply to people in everyday life, regular everyday life. Like
That's
some of these benefits and stuff, like this list of benefits, these are
yeah.
people's motivations and drives for life sometimes altogether, and not just getting a product or something. So
Yeah, yeah. See, you should be the spokesmodel for the wave. This is about riding through life,
yeah.
right? Jumping on your board. Oh gosh. Well, and I'm trying to see here what else we should discuss on here. Can you, I don't know if you can see it any better. I'm trying to.
We have did everybody have a brand that they wanted to talk about for our topics this week or throughout the
Oh,
course?
how do we do that? Or what do you mean? What do you
So for the last discussion that I had, we kind of just dropped pictures into our chat, or we try to share our screens. Um, but mine, I can't really share my screen. I can just like send a link and you guys could look at it yourselves, but um
do you need that component?
I don't need y'all to see anything for what I'm about to explain. Not necessarily.
Okay, then yeah, we'll just go with it. We'll hear you out instead.
So my brand that I chose for this was We Are Not Really Strangers. Um, it's um it's a card game, but it didn't start out that way. It started out as just an Instagram page of this woman, Corinne O'Denary. I think that's her how you say her name. Uh,
Hmm.
she started doing some stuff in New York, like photography. And when she would do photography, she would talk to people and have conversations. And through the conversations that she would have with people, she eventually wanted to make a card game about it. So she had this art page on Instagram that had blown up, and now she promoted her game solely through the Instagram page, solely through the art that she had, and solely through some of the conversations she had with people. So like that's something that I aspire to do now, is like spread my message and the truth, and then based on my message and how it has formed, create my product at the end to where I can distribute and profit off of it. I think that's what social media gives us a good outlet for, is like feeling out our target audience, feeling out our market space, feeling out exactly where we can position ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but that makes sense.
Yeah, would you post a link to that artist in our group chat? Like not here, but like our chat on the page.
Yeah, no problem.
That would honestly be kind of because I hate to say it, but it is actually kind of would be interesting to see a visual on that too. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, I think the first time that I
If I
had
remember the moment I told you,
sorry.
I don't feel like I
The first time that I had that was like class three or third class maybe. I talked about it for the first time. And ever since then, I've been learning more and more about the story and getting the breakdown of how she did it. And it's so interesting. It really is. So I will share that with you guys.
I'm sorry, I'm in the city. I hope that wasn't too loud.
I think you're okay. Zoom,
Okay.
it'll like kind of filter out the background.
Oh, good. Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's pretty cool. What do you have on that, Ariana?
Um, I was kind of looking up this one, Ugly Mug. It was in our book, um, under like what was it? How to like write a personality.
Yeah.
So I think in the book it was pretty good. I'm just trying to pull it up. Like they have all this here of like things that the brand would say if it were a person. And it's kind of having like a hard personality. They said like kind of like acidic, like coffee. And I thought that was interesting. So I looked up the actual or
Yeah.
like the brand today, and it looks kind of like they rebranded a little bit from like they're not the same, like they don't use the same tone as
Hmm.
they did before, but they still do keep some of the like the same personality, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, like I see on here they're big on like music. Uh, they still have kind of like I don't know
They're
how you describe the design, but it's just
yeah.
it's not like like too bright and like sugar coated, I guess.
It's like uniform in a non-uniform way almost because of how, you see the manipulation of the typography a bit. Like it looks non-uniform, but it is a pretty clean brand still.
Yeah.
I just see the font as being the exact same font as the Ugly Tuna, which is a brand. It's the exact font.
Which was it?
The Ugly Tuna.
Ugly tuna. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I can't unsee that.
I want
But
to look that up now.
the coincidence, I'm sure. Yeah, now you're gonna go look it up.
I'm curious what
Ugly Tuna Saluna.
Here you go. Oh,
oh,
that font that I meant, but
it
yeah,
does
it's not the
kind of have the same
yeah,
feel.
yeah. It's yeah. So right, yeah, you can see the font there on the saloon. You see it there on the Wednesdays. That's the font I'm talking about in there. That's the
Yeah,
one they have as their primary. And so what they do, they change their tone by
yeah.
simply changing a font.
See, I'm a big typography person. Like I love learning about fonts so much. Like I want to make my own font eventually one day.
Yeah,
Like multiple fonts, truthfully. I think like glyphs and typography being the way that we communicate with people in the world. It's like if you can create something that like universally could be understood, well, almost universally can be understood, I think there's a lot of power in that.
there's a ton of power in that. Um, yeah.
What kind of fonts would you want to create?
I'm a sans serif type of guy. I like rounded fonts as well. I'm not too much into like the I don't like serifs because I don't like the extra glyphs. I like slab serifs, but again, like I like rounded edges. I do like rounded edges. So something along those lines of like it'd probably be more of a decorative style of font, but
Would it be kind of like Gothic? Yes.
Gothic in a way like almost like a smooth typewriter font, almost like that.
Okay. I think
Yeah,
that would be very cool.
right.
I can hear you. I'm sorry.
Like a sans serif.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, like Ugly Tuna, that right there. That's kind of a smooth, but is that a, yeah, that would be a sans serif because it does not have them, the little turns.
Yeah.
So yeah, so essentially they changed it from a serif to a sans serif. Which, when you think about it for readability, I mean, look right below there where it says follow us on Instagram. That's the font that Instagram uses.
Yeah.
And that is a sans serif. Am I right? Or am I like totally
No, you're right.
okay? Like, so, yeah, there's so many fonts out there.
I was just gonna ask, how do you guys feel about like the world shifting more towards sans serifs in general, just for like easy readability? You know, it seems like everything nowadays, even like a lot of print stuff, is in sans serif fonts so that people can read them quicker.
I think it is a bit more easy to read, and it's more like minimal. Um, Kind of like the serifs are not necessary, I guess.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're trying to like I've noticed that in design, a lot of things they'll be like it's just minimal. So maybe that's part of it too. They want the glyphs to be minimal also.
Well, look at the demonstration on our screen in front of us, even where it's got the get ugly, ugly tuna, place where ugly is okay. Everything in there you can see is very clean, and it represents exactly what you were saying, Xavier. Because the ones below it show with the other font, and where it was very, it was very serify, where it had too much, where it brings down the readability. I think that, now using in writing, I believe in having a strong header, but I believe in a strong header that's legible. I've got a book project I've been working on, and the font that they used before, I can't read it. I can't even tell, well, what did he use? What did he mean to use as a heading here? Because I can't read it with this font. And have you seen those before? Like, are you seeing that more common, or?
Like the more decorative fonts that aren't legible as much. Yeah, yeah. It's like almost like they're only using the letters to portray something visual as opposed to you actually being able to read anything. I kind of like that sort of trend.
Yeah. But then, okay, we can take a look at. So I've got one example. I don't know if you can see this or not. Can you guys see both of these? All right, I got coffee from one place and a scone from another this morning. You can see the logo, how they're different. It's the exact same thing that they do. One of them, if you had this cup, other than the fact that it has a warmer on it, you wouldn't know it's a coffee place.
Yeah.
But due to universal recognition with this logo with Starbucks, you do. It's internationally. You see that sign in a distance, then you know that's what it is, and you know you're going to go in. You're going to get reliably good coffee.
Yeah.
And so, I think this here is more font dependent. They're depending on the font to tell the story, just like you were saying, Ariana. So
It kind of makes me think about Chick-fil-A a little bit. It's like Chick-fil-A has a silly, fun font, but regardless of where a Chick-fil-A is, you know it's going to be a good Chick-fil-A. You know that they're going to have good service, like a good business model, everything like that, you know?
see, I think you bring up an interesting point with that, where the logo and everything, all the branding, the tone, those elements, all of those things, how important they are, because it can reflect other things. We as a society have learned that the more together something is and the more unified something is, the more comfortable we feel with it.
Yeah, like consistency.
Yeah.
I
I
saw that in this.
Any like fonts that are uncomfortable?
Fonts that are un. It's a good question.
What is that one? Uh, Dingbats. It's like
Dingbats. Oh yeah.
but it's like they're just symbols.
Well, or even symbols. I mean, like okay, the Amazon. There's an example for you. I mean, you all know it as the swoosh, right? It's that little smile. It's Nike used a swoosh. Okay, so that's very similar branding. Um, it's an arrow, for them sending things, I guess. Um,
FedEx
but
has an arrow
there
on
looks like a smiley face in the distance. But it's also can be very phallic. And that's another thing that you're supposed to watch out for in graphics that it's not.
Now that you say that, I see it a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah, you can't unsee it. I'm sorry. But it's, that's where, we have to be careful with what we're portraying. Like, see there, that's a good logo. Or at least the name is. The photo is stock imagery, but it's a good font. It's comfortable. It makes me think of a diner.
It kind of makes me think of a like a cafe by the water for some reason. Like a
That's by the
seafood
water.
restaurant.
No, I see that. It does have it's got like a Jamaican feel. Like, like you're in the island, when you think about the coffee, it's got an islandy feel to it.
Oh, that yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know what it is about it, but it does. It may
I
be the waves.
think it
Yeah,
has a jazz sort of vibe as well. Just a little bit. Like I get a bluesy sort of vibe from like the J and the R specifically. Maybe like a bluesy music sort of vibe.
Well, yeah, with Ramblin' Joe's, yeah. Yeah, I see a missed opportunity there. They could have made that coffee, look like a part of a banjo or guitar. That would be kind of funny. But yeah, I think that kind of stuff is like it's amazing how many there are though. I've just been starting to collect them even more so. Now look there, they have different brands within the brand. So Ramblin' Joe also has look at the font that they're using. They're using a totally different font for their titles. And so that's their text title. So the other is their logo title. Have you noticed people when they use like the same font with how important is that, do you think? Like when they use a font that is also in their logo. And reason I ask is because of licensing issues.
I was gonna say something like that because I work at the college that I graduated from for my undergrad, and
Yeah.
they have like a whole branding style guide for how you're supposed to do things. So like I make our weekly newsletters for the schools or for the school, and every time I do it, I have to follow the specific guidelines of
Oh,
the
yeah.
college. They have certain fonts that have been licensed to them that I have to use and specific colors that I have to use. They have all of the codes that go along with it and everything on the guide. So
Yeah.
like a their own brand book or
mm.
brand guide.
Yeah. Well, and what you have to like, one of my clients wanted to use a font that I used for their logo. Well, if they're to use that font for all their marketing material, that's its secondary use. It's being used again. It's no longer part of the initial licensing.
That's interesting.
I mean, I may be wrong, but that's That's the impression that I'm getting out of the industry when I do it. And when you read things,
Like you have to be careful, almost tiptoe with licensing, like make sure that you're using the right fonts and they're royalty free or commercial use, whichever one.
more and more designers are going toward the one thing that you said, making their own fonts and personalizing it. I mean, it won't be long before AI does that for us. It will.
Yeah.
And you know what? Every time AI does something for us, it just makes a certain component easier on us so that we can be able to expand in other ways, creatively.
Yeah.
Because it's only as good as we make it.
That would be really interesting to see AI make its own fonts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they can do it. You can get it to make just about anything. It's not going to always be pretty. Some of the stuff I've seen, like AI has a really big problem with spelling. I have that you can like literally, because sometimes I will have AI generate an image for me for a paper. Like if I need an image, like make me an image of this particular concept where this is happening and this is happening and this is happening. And so you're guiding it to what you want it to do. And that way you can have a royalty free image to be able to use in your paper. And so you do that. And you have to be careful though, because if you want it to say something, you have to tell it, try again, try again. And eventually it'll get it right. But you have to just keep telling it to try again. Have you made friends with your AI yet?
Made friends.
Well, it remembers us.
Yeah.
Because you're logging in. You log in.
Log into just the computer. That's your name.
No, a Microsoft Assistant.
Oh, see, I use Google products, all the Google products.
Well, it's part of the Google has stuff too, but it's probably different. It's just basically like in a search bar. If you ask it to find you something, it'll go out and find it. Or if you ask it to make something, like make an image, it can make it. But anyway, because I log into mine every time, it remembers me. So I asked it a
I
question
got you. Yeah.
months ago. I said, "Could I name you? Could I give you a name?" And it said, "Sure, Laura. What would you like for it to be?" I was like, "Oh, wow." I was like, "Okay, you're Charlie now." And I like Charlie. It's a consistent name, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, you can do that. And so now whenever I log in, it'll say, "Hi, Laura. How are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm fine. How are you doing, Charlie?"
That's cool.
Have you guys ever seen
Yeah.
movie Her? There's a movie called Her. It's with Joaquin Phoenix. I think that's how you say his name. And Scarlett Johansson is this AI voice, and Joaquin Phoenix, he falls in love with her with the
Oh,
AI.
yeah.
And like it's like AI technically is only a representation of our own ideas. Like they only can think of what we program into them.
Right.
But then you had that movie where it's like, nah, we gave them consciousness. So all of them in the movie have a sort of their own will, their own consciousness. Like they want to do their own things sometimes, as opposed to just serving as AI. It
Mm,
was
Yeah.
interesting.
they
It'll
found
learn on its own.
too fundamental. What were you saying, Ariana?
Or just like that the AI will begin to learn on its own.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not as afraid of it as everybody else is.
Yeah, I would say I'm not afraid because like our I don't think we can have the capacity to make something that would, well, not to say that we can't, but like we're not going to bring on our own doomsday with AI. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think that's what's going to happen.
We can. That's actually something
And
that
you can,
happened. But
What motivation would AI have to take over the world?
there
That's
is no,
that's
that's
mine.
the point, is it doesn't have its own motivation. Right. That's a good point. It's the motive behind the person using it.
There's also like a video game. Okay, this is making me think. There's a
Oh,
video game of these computer people, and they have been programmed with the emotions, feelings, thoughts, memories of people. So, like, you could say that they are people in a way, but they're still machines just programmed to mimic the behaviors of other people, you know?
yeah.
Like, can they ever conceptualize what they're doing? Not really.
No, they can't. Not without help. And so they couldn't conceptualize the doom, but the person that programmed it can conceptualize that into them. That's where sci-fi comes in. All right. Well,
I think we definitely hit our time mark.
I think we did. Yay team.
Yeah.
We rode the wave. All right. Ariana?
Let's see.
Oh, there she is. Good.
I guess I'll stop the recording then here.
Okay.